Hey, how are you doing? Casey Arndt here from Go the Distance Coaching. Whether it's been a long time since you've done a 70.3 or you are thinking about doing your very first one, I wanted to share with you a little bit of perspective to help you decide if now is the time or if you might want to focus in on your training a little bit more and take some other steps up to that 70.3 distance. Now, I have known people who have jumped in and done their very first try as a 70.3. In fact, I've had one crazy client who did an Ironman his very first try. There are some freaks out there. I personally did not take that path at all. I actually did a whole bunch of sprints, and then one summer I got in over my head and tried my very first Olympic try. I lived in a place where there weren't a lot of 70.3s, but there were a lot of Olympic distance events that you could do. And all I remember about that event is how badly I wanted to puke when I was done. So just doubling the sprint distance for me as a beginner, it was really hard. And I remember thinking with trepidation about a 70.3, oh my gosh, how would I do that? And it was really scary to me. But after a couple more seasons of doing Olympics and really feeling confident at that distance, I went ahead and took the plunge. This was actually not my first 70.3. I was not able to find that t-shirt. I can't even find the medal from that first one. This was my third one, which I did in my brand new hometown of Austin after a few weeks of living here. And I just wanted to talk a little bit. You know that if you do an Ironman branded event, there are time limits. Now, some of the independent half distance tries and full distance tries don't necessarily have those same time limits. If you don't meet the criteria that I'm going to discuss today, some of those might be places that you could start if you really want to take on that longer distance, but you're not confident that you could do it within the confines that Ironman allows. So if we're talking about 70.3, let's say a bunch of your friends are doing one, there's a new one that's near you that everybody seems to be doing and you want to get on the bandwagon, or you've been doing a bunch of tries and you're really ready to take that next step up. What do you need to do to get ready? So if you're doing an Ironman branded event, you're going to have about 8.5 hours to finish. And so I want to look at each leg and really realistically where you should be with each of those to really take on this distance and not have to be freaking out all day long about the time limits. The first one obviously is the swim. Now, there are two things about the swim. One, you have to be a pretty good swimmer over the distance, which is going to be about 2,100 yards. But you also have to be confident in open water under whatever conditions you're going to have. So temperature, how much wind you think there might be, how rough could it possibly be if a storm happened to be happening that day. You just never know. You kind of want to be prepared for the worst. And so if you can get away with doing about 2 minutes per 100 yards in the pool, you might want to expand that out to say maybe 2:15 or 2:20 in the open water if things are not going great. And that is still going to give you about 47 minutes finishing the swim, which is way under the hour and 10 minutes that you've got that Ironman is going to give you. So if you can finish 2,100 yards at your race pace, like going as hard as you think you're going to swim in the race, and you can finish that at an average of 2 minutes per 100, you're comfortable. I mean, you're not going to be setting any speed records out there, but you're going to be comfortably within the time limit, even if things don't go ideally. If you don't have major problems in the open water. If you know that you have major anxiety issues in open water, if you've had some bad experiences, if you've been in other races and you know that there's a big difference between your pool times and your open water times, you're going to obviously want to work on that. It's probably easier to get a handle on the open water issues than it is to make yourself 20 seconds per 100 faster in the pool. Although I have definitely seen people pull that off. So it just depends on kind of where you're at. So if you're getting all the way out to about 2.5 minutes per 100 yards, if we put that cushion on there of say maybe 2:45 per 100 in the open water, that's still going to get you in at an hour, but it's pretty close to the hour and 10. So if you are not swimming faster than 2.5 minutes per 100 yards over a main set, not an entire workout, but a main set of, let's say, 7 300s with pretty short rest. If you can do that main set and you can average 2.5 per 100 yards, then you're probably comfortable to be able to go ahead and do that, again, if you don't have any major open water issues. If you tend to have sinky legs and you're going to be able to race in a wetsuit, that might actually help you. You might actually swim faster in the open water. So I would say if you can't swim faster than 2.5 minutes per 100 yards, really want to focus in on your swim before you take a plunge at this, because it would really stink to not get to finish the swim and have done all that training and not get to put it to use on that day. So it's worth taking a few more months, really working out on the swim, using all of the tools that you have available to you, whether that's a swim instructor or videos or what have you, or just making sure that you're actually getting in the pool and doing the workouts. That's going to help a lot. All right, so let's talk about the bike. The bike is 56 miles. And again, there will be some restrictions on the time. Let's say you got out of the water with plenty of time. I think 4 hours is a good amount of time that you want to be under with the bike. If you can finish in 2.5 to 4 hours, usually you're going to be able to do okay on the run and still finish. If you're going to take longer than 4 hours, which would be slower than 14 miles an hour, I think it's going to be a really hard day. One, you're going to be out there a really long time. You're going to be trying to rush around for your run, and you may be tired just from trying to finish the bike over that long of a period of time. So again, if you think you're going to be slower than 14 miles an hour, it's worth really working on your bike before you take on this distance. So if you can finish an Olympic try and your bike leg there was 15 miles an hour or better, or you have gone out and you've done a long ride of 45 or plus miles and you've averaged over 15 miles an hour and you could run 3 miles after that, I think you're set to go. So you don't necessarily have to finish a full 56 miles and then figure out, okay, can I run a half marathon now? Just get some data. If you are able to do an Olympic try before taking on your first 70.3, it's going to give you a great idea of where you're at. 1, with your fitness, 2, with your ability to pace yourself well, and 3, with where you are in terms of all these speeds. If you take that time for your Olympic try and you double it and add about half an hour, it's going to give you a pretty good idea of where you could possibly finish that 70.3 once you've added some additional endurance. Now for the run, if you can run the whole way, that's awesome. If you have a run-walk plan, you're not sure how much of the half marathon you're going to be able to run, you want to try to aim in at about 15 minutes per mile as what you might be wanting to aim for. So that's either a very brisk walk the whole way, or it's going to be some good running mixed in with some walking. Now I think if it's a hot day, you can definitely plan on probably walking at least a little bit, unless you were just stellar with pacing yourself on the bike. I can't tell you how many people I've heard say, yeah, I had this amazing bike leg, it was so fast, and then the run was terrible. I need to work on more brick runs. Well, you need to work on pacing yourself properly on the bike so that you don't blow up your legs before you get to the run. So if you can't finish all your long runs, say 10 plus milers that you're going to be doing in your training at 15 minutes per mile or better, again, it's going to be really tough to make it in under the limit of the time that Ironman gives you. So if you are sticking to what I'm telling you, 2.5 minutes per 100 on the swim, 4 hours on the bike, and 15 minutes per mile on the run, that is still going to get you over the time limit by a few minutes if you have long transitions of, say, 10 minutes and 7 minutes, which for a first-timer I don't think is unreasonable. So what that means is you can't be just squeaking by in all 3 of those disciplines. You really need to have 1 or more of them where you feel really comfortable. So let's say you're a really good swimmer, but you're not so sure about your bike and your run. If your swim is great and those 2 are kind of, just in there at those limits that I just mentioned, you'll probably be okay because you will have given yourself a good cushion of 15 or 20 minutes on the swim. Now, if you're a really fast runner, but you're not really that confident about your swim, as long as you can get out of the water, you're probably good to go. And if you're a Uber biker, you're set as long as you can get out of the water. So if you have 1 of those disciplines that's great, then just make sure you're going to be there for the other 2. If all 3 of them are a little iffy, then you might want to really focus in on one or two of those and get them really strong before you take on this distance. All right? Or go find an Indy half where there's not such a time limit. So ask around in your area. I hope this is helpful. If you have an issue with what I said, if you have successfully finished and your times were way different from what I said, I would love to hear from you. These are some times that I think are reasonable, but I would love to hear your experience. So please send me a private message or a comment down below and let me know, what was your first experience like? What was it like if you barely finished by the finish time? You know, what were your paces like and how did it work for you? I would love to hear your experience. And I will hope that you go out and go for your dreams. Just because you may not feel confident about finishing a 70.3 this year doesn't mean you can't take it on. I do not feel confident about taking on a 70.3 this year because my training for running is not where it should be, and frankly, I've only been on my bike outside one time all year. So even for me, I've done 5 or 6 of these and I don't feel confident about taking this distance on every season. So it's totally fine. Go work on your weaknesses and get your strengths even stronger. Really be gritty about this. There's no reason to give up. It's just a reason to dig in and really get the fitness that you want, get the skills that you want. All right, so you guys have a great season and I'll see you right back here this next week. If you're not able to join me live for these videos, but you enjoy watching them, I would love to add you to my email list. I'm going to start sending out links to the videos on YouTube each week so that you can catch those at your leisure instead of joining me here at 1-ish Central Time like I've been doing. All right, so thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on that email list. Take care.